Teaching dossier has started to rise more in popularity over the last 10, 15 years, I would say. And it's where you articulate explicitly your teaching philosophies, your approach to teaching. You might include examples of exercises you've done. You could include course syllabi. This is where you would put the more comprehensive surveys of your student evaluations. If you've had somebody come in to critique your teaching, you could have that in there as well. It could be multiple pages. Very often universities will have a faculty support center or a teacher support center where you can get some help around constructing your own CV, teaching dossier. It's a good idea to construct one of these before you go on the market, even if you never use it as a document on the market, because again, it gives you that language to make explicit those things that you sort of do without actually narrating to yourself why I'm teaching this way and what I'm trying to achieve. You sort of internalized all this. This gives you a chance to put it in language and sort of construct it into a coherent package. So when you're talking about your teaching, because this will come up in an interview, most definitely, you'll be asked about your approach to teaching. You'll be asked about strategies and how would you teach this and what have you found here and how you've overcome certain obstacles and when you have worked with certain kinds of students. These are very common topics to come up in job interviews. And having this go at just getting your thoughts all in a row about it beforehand can be quite useful.
Is that an addendum?
Yeah, it's a whole separate document.
But when you're sending out the CV, do you automatically include it, or does it depend on?
Whether or not you automatically include the dossier, really, it's personal preference and depends on how much it's going to cost you to send it if it wasn't asked for. In some search committees, as I said, they'll read everything. So you're certainly not going to lose by sending it in. In others, they're not going to look at it until maybe the second round or third round. And then if it's there, they'll read it. And if not, they may request it. Sometimes you'll actually see them requesting it in the original job posting. Again, for positions where the demand is going to be more for teaching, it's not a bad thing to have. It's also not a bad, if you're not sure, okay, you got a 15-page teaching dossier, or am I going to send 15 pages for the first round? Maybe, maybe not. What if I send a one-page summary? And you could do it that way. Or if you're not even sure about that because they didn't ask for that, or if they've said quite explicitly, only items requested will be vetted, get one of your referees to include this stuff in their letter. One of your referees will probably be talking about your teaching. Show them what you've sort of put together, go over this, and ask them to insert some of this into their letter. And it's a guarantee of making, even at the very beginning stages, that the committee will in fact get the most important accomplishments you have about your teaching, and then as you get further on in the selection process, they can get into the details. Okay? Now we get into research. How many have a research section, like an actual section that's about research experience? Is there anyone in the room? Yeah. What sort of things have you included in your research?
I've been working as a project manager.
So project management experience, yeah.
Management experience, research contracts, research assistantships, that kind of thing.
Okay, good. And you can see then where this would be very field specific. The humanities tends not to have this as much, although again, that's a generalization because there's certainly projects that get managed in humanities. Social science, particularly if you're moving into research, field research, or project-based research, you're going to have more experience in this area. And I get extremely field specific at this point, okay? For some people, the research experience is the same thing as their publications. So if you're going to have a publication section, that is going to be your research, and you would be putting that in the same section you would have a research. In some cases, you're going to have a research section and you're going to have a publication section. So depending on your field. Okay, and how important that is to the position is great. That tends to be up higher. Okay. Again, evaluate the strength of your publications and the strength of your research experience. Okay, if you actually don't have much in the way of publications, 1 publication, 2 publications, in not top journals, but good journals, it's not going to be your strongest asset. Maybe at this stage your teaching will be a stronger asset. Maybe your breadth would be a stronger asset. So keep in mind not only what's so in this position, what are the interests of that institution, what's typical in my discipline, and what's so in my particular instance. And it's a negotiation of all of these, which is why, again, I tend to shy away from handing out the paper that says, here's a CV sample, because by the time you put all those filters on it, the sample doesn't become very useful to too many people. Okay? Publications, though, this is like the meat and potatoes of the CV, because this is where your expertise goes through peer review, is accepted by your discipline as being legitimate, important contributions to the field. Okay? How you structure this, again, depends on your situation. There's a whole article that I wrote for University Affairs on this, on the career resources section of the University Affairs site that gives all sorts of different contingencies. There's also, I'll just borrow this for a sec, these books that are around, the Getting Hard. I believe it's in this one as well, the publications article, presenting scholarly work on your CV. And it gets into all details about that. Some of the things I've seen is a tendency, and it's not because people are dishonest, it's just such a tremendous pressure to publish so early on in your career that you sort of feel forced to come up with something in there. People tend to put and differentiate between accepted, like publications that are actually in print versus publications that are being accepted for print but are not in print, versus publications that are going through peer review versus submissions versus in process. Okay? I've heard lots of different details here. In my world, for my practice, I don't put anything on that's in process. I don't put anything on myself that's being submitted. I don't put it on until I at least know it's going through peer review. The CV and the resume, these are listing genres. Okay, they're primarily a genre of a list. So the manipulation of the list, the format of the list, and subheadings carry an enormous amount of rhetorical power in resumes and cover letters, because you're not explaining things explicitly. You're giving just little facts, so you need to contextualize those facts in subheadings that give that fact coherence.
By topic or what?
You can do it, again, you can do it by topic, you can do it by field. I've seen people do academic, professional. I've seen them do it by areas. So you could say international development, advocacy, community development. I've seen it done just in terms of chronology, peer-reviewed, and other. So it's really, what is the way you can take this body and manipulate it and stretch it and rearrange it so it's got integrity, it's factual, but it highlights what you see as being most relevant in this context. Okay, so there's a lot of malleability in this, depending on where things have gone. You can also be strategic when you're deciding, okay, I've got a year left, I know I'm going to need some publications. I'm positioning myself as being pretty equal in about 2 areas. I've got some here. I think for the next couple of months I'm going to work on these ones in this field. So start trying to get a little bit of balance in there. Okay. Be careful. Book chapters, for instance, have more cachet than an article, but the timeline on book chapters is horrendous. So you could submit something. I think we're entering their 2nd year now since it's being accepted for submission, and the darn thing still isn't in print. So things like books and book chapters, the lag time takes forever. Articles are marginally better in that instance.